Hi everyone, my name is Talese Hunt. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be a really gentle movement and breathing focused workout. So I want to remind you, please take this at your own pace. Feel free to take breaks. You can push pause and come back later. And you don't need to do everything that I suggest. So please follow the advice of your medical professionals and also listen to what your own body is asking for today. So today I'll be using a chair. Please be sure your chair is sturdy enough that you can move your body a little bit. Again, this will be very gentle, easing back into some movement and breathing. Also be sure that you have some water. Let's get started. So I'm gonna turn and face just so that you can see my movement a little bit better on this diagonal. Let's start by sitting your hips towards the edge of the chair, but not to the point that you feel like you might fall off. Hands can rest on your legs and then just sitting up nice and tall as you possibly can. Feel free to close your eyes at any time if you like, and let's place your hands around the bottom of your rib cage and then just start to take some really gentle but focused breaths into your hands at your own pace. So I want you to go really easy on yourself here. We're starting to just wake up your respiratory diaphragm, which is located right at the bottom of the rib cage. As you breathe in, see if you can feel the rib cage expand into your hands. So ribs are expanding sideways and a little bit frontwards and backwards. And as you breathe out, it should feel like the ribs are kind of closing together and getting a little bit smaller as you press all the air out of your lungs. Let's just do this a few more times, remembering that breathing might be really difficult, especially as you're coming back from a respiratory illness. And so just being patient with our diaphragm, and we'll gently open up the rib cage as well so that we can expand it a little bit more easily. We're gonna move next into some seated cat-cow. Let's take your hands onto your legs and then think about bringing the front of your body forward. So we'll start by pulling your kneecaps, just very gently, not actually moving the kneecaps, but gently cupping the hands around the end of the knee, lifting the chest, opening the collarbone and lifting your eyes. So this is a nice big stretch along the front side of the body. And then let's do the opposite. So we're bringing the front of the body into the back of the body. Let your eyes look down towards your hips. And just beware, keep a little bit of space between your chin and your chest so that we're not forcing your chin all the way down. Let's try that again. So lifting the chest, gently bringing the shoulder blades on the back side of your body towards each other. Letting the front of the rib cage really open up and get a nice stretch there. And then doing the opposite. So this is kind of like your angry cat. We're making the back side of our body really round. And now just take this at your own pace and know that it can be really, really small. It doesn't need to look just like mine. I'm trying to exaggerate my movement so you can see what I'm doing. So just find a spot that feels really good for you. If there's any pain involved, that's a good sign to back off a little bit. Maybe you're putting in a little too much effort, maybe trying to force something that your body's not quite ready for. Let's do that one more time in each direction. Thinking about growing a little bit taller, maybe creating some more space in between each bone in your spine. And then maybe drawing the front of the body just a little bit deeper in towards the spine as we make that angry cat position. Let's meet in the middle, sitting up nice and tall. Feel free to make any adjustments that you need to. And now we're gonna work on the side of our body. So let's start by reaching the right arm up towards the sky. Think about growing a little bit taller. And then start to gently bend over to the left side. Now, if your neck is feeling a little bit tight, try placing your right hand behind your head to just give your neck a little bit of support. And then we'll come right back up into the center and lower that right arm. Reach the left arm up to the sky, gently bending over to the right. And again, using your left hand to support your head slightly if needed. Let's do that a couple more times on each side, taking this at your own pace. This time as we bend over to the left, let's stay there just for a gentle breath in, trying to gently open up that right side of the rib cage. And then sitting up tall and lower that right arm down. Left arm reaches up, optional to place it behind the head. Bending over to the right, and stay there as you take a gentle breath into the left side of the rib cage. And then coming back up. Let's do that one more time on each side. So right arm reaches up. Maybe thinking of the right hip dropping a little heavier onto your chair as your right ear reaches up and over. Stay there for a breath in. And then coming back to the center one more time. So again, moving at your own pace. Reaching the left hip down, the left ear up and over. Breathing into that left side of the rib cage. And then coming back to the center. Now let's add some gentle twisting. So I'm going to start by twisting to the left. Right hand will come to the left leg, and then left hand can start to reach behind you. So this is where it's good to have a little space behind you on your chair. And if it feels okay, you can reach a little bit further behind you. Let your eyes look in the direction that you're twisting. And then try to send a nice gentle breath into those low parts of the rib cage. And gently coming back through the center, let's go the other way, twisting to the right. The left hand comes to the right leg, and the right hand will reach behind you. Find a spot that feels good. And then gently breathing into the low parts of the ribs. Let's do that one more time on each side. So I'm not sure how much you can hear in the microphone. There's a beautiful little bird that likes to hang out in the evening and sing to us. Lots of nice birds to view on Aruba. And then we'll go the other way. And then coming back to the center. It's also very windy today, so hopefully you're not getting too much wind in the microphone. Okay, finding the center. Now we're going to start to add kind of a circular movement with the rib cage. Let's start by placing your hands on your ribs again. And start by just shifting your rib cage over to the left. So if this is the center of my body, my ribs are just moving slightly more towards my left hip, and then coming back through the center, and go the other way, slightly over to the right hip. Let's do that a couple more times on each side. And again, it might be really small. You also might notice it's much more difficult in one direction than the other. I can definitely feel the right side much more challenging. My ribs don't really want to go over to that right side. So that's okay to just notice those differences, but let's try not to add any judgment. It just adds more stress, which we don't need when we're recovering from illness. Now let's see if we can turn this into a circle. So we're going to combine some of the movements that we've already done. Hands will come back onto your legs. I'll start by shifting my ribs to the left side. Now, circle the ribs towards the front, and then continue circling over to the right side. Now we start to go backwards. So I'm trying to bring my ribs a little bit behind my hips, and let's keep going that direction. So over to the left, bring the ribs forward, over to the right, and then bringing the ribs back. Now feel free, if it feels good to you, you could add your head. So you might lift your eyes as you bring your heart forward, and maybe you lower your eyes as you bring the front of the body into the back of the body, just like we did with our cat-cow. So I'm continuing to circle in the same direction. And remember, it doesn't need to look just like me. So if this is feeling like it's not what your body wants to do, really any kind of fluid movement is going to be beneficial. So maybe your movement looks more like a wave or a snake. All of those are good. Let's try to go the other direction. So whatever movement you're doing, whatever feels good to you, see if you can just take it in the opposite direction that you were just doing. And then let's just check in. Are we still breathing? Try to keep the breath moving through your body. And maybe noticing if your neck is feeling really tight, that's a good sign that you might be breathing with a little too much effort, too much force. Or if you're starting to feel a little dizzy or lightheaded, back off the breathing, maybe lie down for a second, take a break, come back when you feel ready. Okay, I'm gonna finish there. So this is maybe a good time, like I said, to take a break, grab a drink, and then we'll move on to some movement for our hips. All right, welcome back. Let's start with some gentle movement for our hips. So I know they can get really tight when we've been sick and we haven't been moving a lot. Let's again be sure that your hips are towards the front edge of your chair, not to the point that you feel like you might fall off. And then sitting up as tall as you can. Now use your hands. I want you to find this crease at the front of your hips. So that really is the hip socket. We're going to try to move from this crease a little bit. So imagine your spine now is really straight, just like a board. We're going to try to move just from this crease. So think of leaning forward a little bit just from that crease. So I'm going to tip forward slightly towards my legs, trying to keep my back really straight. So it feels like the bottom of my butt is almost lifting up off the chair. And then just come right back to where you started. Let's try that again. So we lean forward. My neck is really long. There's no wrinkles in the back of the neck. So my eyes are looking kind of forward on the floor as I lean forward, and then they lift back up to be at just parallel with the floor. Let's do that a few more times. So we're just gently warming up the hips, leaning forward. And then trying to find vertical where your head is stacked right over your shoulders. Your shoulders are stacked right over your ribs. And your ribs are stacked right over your hips. Let's do that just one more time. Leaning forward. And then sitting up nice and tall. Now let's see if we can lean backwards. So this will require a little bit of abdominal strength. So from that crease, now we're thinking of the crease opening up. So our torso is going to lean back a little bit. And it will be really small. Think just 1 inch, lean back, and then try to sit up right on top of those butt bones that we sit on. So that crease is opening up, so we're hinging just like a door, and then coming back up. Let's try a few more. If your neck is feeling tight, try to keep your eyes looking just to that horizon level so they're parallel with the floor. And that will protect your neck a little bit. You could also try placing your hands behind your head. Just be sure you can see your elbows in your peripheral vision. That will actually help your abdominals stay more connected than if we try to open the ribs, open the elbows really wide. Let's try a couple more. So opening at the front of the hip. See if you can imagine there's a really wide belt all the way around your waist from your ribs to your hips. Before you lean back, try to tighten that belt a little bit, and then we open up that crease in the front of the hip. Let's do just one more. Hinging back, and then coming back up. All right, we did it. So now we're going to turn sideways. So I'm going to turn my chair towards you so that you can see. And I want you to reach one leg out to the side of your chair. So if you're on your sofa, you might just need to turn sideways slightly. So one leg is stretched all the way straight so that you can really plant your foot on the floor. And then can you also have one butt cheek kind of sitting off the side of the chair? Great. We're going to start with a little rotation in our pelvis. So first, let's turn your leg so that your kneecap and your toes are pointing straight up to the sky. So your whole thigh bone has just rotated in your hip socket. Now let's think about your hips. So we have hip bones here in the front. Let's think about turning them towards our other leg and allow your leg to rotate with you. So your kneecap and your toe will now point forward. Now bring your hip bones back to face front and let your kneecap and toes turn up to the sky. So our entire pelvis is turning towards this bent leg and then turning away from that bent leg. Now feel free to hold on to your chair. If you need a little support, place that hand on your leg as we do this rotation. And again, feel free to make any adjustments that you need to if you don't feel comfortable or something feels a little bit strange. So we're really opening up and moving through the hip socket. Now let's keep the hip bones facing front. And now just move your legs. So this will be very small. Can you turn your kneecap and toes to face the front? Just as much as they will without any pain. And then turn the kneecap and the toes to face the sky. Let's do a few more like that. So this is really just a nice massage deep in the hip socket. See if you can make it really smooth. You might notice I can feel there's some spots that are a little bit I can't think of the word. Not smooth. See how smooth you can make the movement. Maybe try gently pressing your heel into the floor, and that can help just activate those deep muscles that are creating this rotation. All right, pretty good. So now let's turn the kneecap and the toes to face front. Let your foot totally rest on the floor. And we're gonna do another side bend. This time reach your arms straight out to the side. We're gonna bend towards your bent leg. So for me, that's my left leg. I'm bending over to the left. I'll place my left hand on the chair and take a big side stretch. So this one can be a little bit bigger than what you did earlier. Usually this straight leg will counterbalance your side bend. Let's do that again. So going up and over, opening up that right side of the body, and then coming back up, and let's lift both arms out to the side. So this is some gentle strength for the shoulders as well. Up and over to the left, pressing that right leg down into the floor, and then coming back up to sit tall. One more time. Gently breathing throughout this movement. And then let's add a little twist towards the chair again, just like we did earlier. So we're gonna twist towards the back side of the chair. Allow your hips to twist as well. And then let's add our gentle cat-cow here. So think of gently using your chair to lift your chest. Little bit of a stretch in the front of the body. It might feel really small. That's totally normal. And then a little bit drawing the front of the body into the back of the body. Let's do that 2 more times. So lifting the chest, letting your eyes lift up. And then almost pushing your chair away from you to help bring the front of the body into the back of the body. 1 more time. Lifting the chest. And then looking towards your hips. And then just gently de-twist. Okay, we have 1 more thing on this side. So really be sure here that your butt cheek is off the chair, and we're gonna allow a little bit of a side bend here. So also an adjustment with this leg that's straight. I want you to bend it. Be careful that your chair is sturdy here, and let your foot rest on the floor. Now we're gonna let your butt cheek kind of drop down a little bit, so really use your legs for support so that you don't fall off. And now I want you to think of lifting your hip up towards your rib cage. So we're lowering the hip down. See if you can go a little bit lower than your chair, and then lifting the hip up. So this is where it's really important to have a sturdy chair, or make sure you're close to the wall and you can press up against the wall so that you don't tip your chair off to the side. This is a really nice stretch through your low back. There's this muscle called your quadratus lumborum in the low back that gets really tight. Let's do that 1 more time, dropping the hip down and lifting the hip up. And then let's do all of that on the other side. So I'm just gonna shift over towards the other side. Maybe for this one, I'll turn my chair again on the angle. Reaching the left leg out to the side. If you just did your left leg, be sure it's your right leg. And then the other leg is bent. All right, so let's start by thinking about the hip bones, and we're gonna add some rotation. So think of rotating your hip bones towards the bent leg, and also let your kneecap and your toes go with you. And now rotating those hip bones back towards the front and turn your kneecap and toes towards the sky. So let's do that a few more times. Remember, you can hold onto your chair here for a little bit more support. And we're really trying to let the entire pelvis rotate around this leg that is bent. Kind of gently getting some movement back into our hip socket. All right, and then facing the hip bones to the front. Now let's try to move that just into the leg. So turning the kneecap and the toes to the front just as much as they feel comfortable with, and then turning them back up to the sky. Let's do that again. So you're really thinking of the movement happening all the way at the top of your thigh bone, deep into that hip socket. Now each hip might feel very different, that's okay. And see if you can keep breathing into those low ribs. Let's do one more. And now let's go into our side bend. So we're gonna plant the foot down onto the floor so that we're really secure. Arms reach out to the side. Think about taking up lots of space. And then I'm bending over to the right, so away from your straight leg. Your hand can come onto the chair, pressing that straight leg into the floor to reach even more length into that side of the body, and then press back up and reach your arms out to the side. So growing a little bit taller, up and over, and pressing back up off the chair. Let's do a few more. So we're reaching in opposition through that straight leg and the arm that's reaching overhead. Oh, I can already feel myself breathing a little bit more freely. Feels really nice. And now let's add in our rotation. So I'll be turning away from you towards the back of the chair. Allow your pelvis and your leg to rotate. And find a spot on the chair that feels comfortable to hold on to. And then let's add our cat-cow. So we're gonna lift the chest. Think of gently pulling the chair towards you. I can feel a big stretch on my abdominals there. And then think of almost pushing your chair down to the floor and drawing the front of your body into the back of the body. Let's do that again, lifting the eyes, opening the chest. And this movement's usually a little smaller when we add the rotation in, so don't feel that it needs to be really big. We just want to gently open up all these areas that haven't been moving very much. All right, let's come back to the side. Now a little adjustment again, check that your hip is off the side of the chair, and then we're gonna bend that leg. So be really careful that you don't fall off. Can tell I'm working hard to not fall. And now we're gonna let our hip drop down a little bit, trying to go a little below the chair. And then we lift that hip up. So it is okay to use your feet. You are pressing the floor away a little bit with your feet, but you are also using a little bit of strength through your oblique abdominals here between the hip bone and your rib. So getting a nice stretch through the low back as we drop the hip down. Feels nice. Let's do one more. All right, and then settling back into the center. Okay, so this is another great time to take a little break, maybe grab a drink, and then when we come back, we'll move into a little bit of leg work. All right, everyone, let's do some gentle strengthening for your legs. So we're still on our chair. Let's sit right towards the edge of it. Now, this is where I want to encourage you to have something to hold on to. So if you feel like maybe your balance isn't very good or you're getting a little bit dizzy or lightheaded, be sure that you have something that you can hold on to. So we're sitting at the front edge of our chair, sitting up nice and tall, and let's find again that crease at the front of our hips. So we're trying to lean forward from the front of that crease. And then we'll come back to just sitting upright. So we lean forward from the front of the crease and then come back to upright. Now let's lift the arms up if you can. We'll reach forward, keeping those arms up, and then come back to sitting upright. Now I'm gonna bring my feet a little bit closer to me and we're gonna see if we can stand up. Start by just hovering your hips off the seat about 1 inch. Just barely feel your butt lift up. So I'm leaning forward. See if you can keep your back straight. Feel a little more weight on your feet. And now can you just barely lift your hips off the chair and then come back and sit up tall. Okay, so feel free to make any adjustments you need to. Let's lean forward. See if you can keep your back as straight as a board, as much as you can. Push your feet into the floor. Reach those arms further forward. It will help you. Just lift your hips an inch or two and then sit back down. Now this is the hardest part of standing up, right? Most of us can use momentum and stand right up. This is really using our control and strength. So feel your body weight go into your feet. Your whole foot, push that into the floor, lift the hips up. Maybe we come up 6 inches this time, and then as much control as you can as you come back down. Can we try about 5 more of these before we stand all the way up? Now, even if you're just thinking of lifting your hips, but you're not quite lifting, that's okay. You're building strength that way as well. So try to just feel the backs of your legs pressing down towards the floor. Lift those hips if you can, and then slowly sit back down. You can always lower your arms if they need a break. Hands could be on your hips. They could be close in front of your chest here, like a prayer position. Can we try just 2 more of these? So reaching the arms forward does help you out a little bit. It adds a little bit of body weight coming forward, and that's where you might want to grab onto maybe your kitchen counter or a wall, something that will help you a little bit. That's a great way to get started. I am going to get ready to stand all the way up on this next one. Take it at your own pace. And let's stand all the way up. I'm going to reach my arms all the way overhead and then circle the arms out to the side. Reach the arms to the front. Now let's sit slowly back down. So send your hips backwards to find the chair, bend the knees. And with as much control as you can, slowly sit back down onto that chair and sit up tall. Let's do another big arm circle. Reach up and overhead. Now reach the arms in front. Lean forward, keeping your back as straight as a board. Press your feet down into the floor. And slowly stand all the way up. Arms reach all the way up. Circle them out to the side and down. Reach the bottom of your butt, cheeks back. Bend the knees. Finding as much control as you can today. Slowly sit down, arms reach up and overhead, back out to the sky, out to the side and down. Reach those arms front, lean forward. Lift the hips up, stand all the way up. Arms reach overhead, out to the side and down. And then send those hips back, bend your knees. With as much control as you can, sit down. Let's try that just one more time, and then we'll add a final challenge. So circling the arms to the front, reach front, lean forward, press your feet down into the floor, stand up nice and tall, reach those arms out to the side. Whew, I can feel that in my shoulders. Now let's try to just hold a squat. This is where if you need a little help, be sure you have something to hold on to. You could even just bring your chair around in front and hold on to that. So find a place that feels like you can hold for a moment. We're gonna bend our knees, reach your hip bones back behind you, think chest forward, hips back, really straight spine, and let's stay here for a moment. Now can you just breathe? Try to send your air into those low ribs. And then close the ribs together as you breathe out. Let's do 2 more deep breaths here, just holding. So this is isometric hold, when we're just holding an amount of resistance. But it's a great way to build strength when you're coming back from an injury or an illness. Let's stand all the way back up this time. So rather than sitting down, stand up. If you need to take a break, please do, sit down. We're gonna try that one more time. We'll add some movement in our feet. So find a place again that you feel like you can hold. So if that's here today, that's great. You might just bend your knees a little bit, but find a place that feels good to you, a place that you can still breathe and there's no pain. Now see if you can just lift one heel off the floor and then slowly set it back down, and then the other heel off the floor and slowly set it back down. Try to keep alternating sides. And again, see if you can make it as smooth as possible. How smooth can you make the movement? And it's okay if you're feeling really shaky in your ankles, that's very normal. Now, if you're feeling great and you're like, I am ready for more challenge, this is where you could try lifting both heels at the same time. And it might be really small at first. It might feel very unstable. You might lose your balance a little bit, that's okay. That's where it's good to have something to hold on to. Let's try just 4 more. And if you're alternating, be sure that you even it up on each side. If you're feeling good, you might try to sink your hips just a little bit deeper. Here's my last one. And then let's again stand all the way up. A big stretch of the arms over the head. Let's add a little side stretch. So reaching the left arm down to your side. Reach that right arm a little bit further up to the sky. And then slowly come back up. Both arms overhead. Right arm down towards your right pinky toe. Left arm up towards the sky. Coming back up. Let's allow the arms to just float down, maybe circling out the wrists. Let's just wiggle. Let yourself shake it out. Whatever feels good. And then very nice, gentle, let's sit down and we'll end with a little bit of stretching for your neck. So sit however is comfortable. Think about growing a little bit taller and then gently let your left ear tilt over towards your left shoulder. Stay here and take some gentle breaths low into those ribs. And so we're really just allowing gravity to lengthen out that right side of your neck. Let's try adding some small circles through the right shoulder. So just barely lifting up the shoulder and then circling it backwards and then down and to the front. And then go the other way. So this is really nice to help loosen up tension in the neck. And then let's gently come back to the center and go the other way. So tilting the right ear towards the right shoulder. Try to, again, just gently breathe into the low ribs. And when you feel ready, small circles through the left shoulder can help loosen up tension that we've been holding in the front of the chest, the front of the shoulder, even in your jaw. So see if you can just let any of that go. Gently coming back to the center. Just take a few shoulder rolls here again to let go of any tension that you might still be feeling there. And then go the other direction, up and forward. Okay, a few last stretches. Just gently turn your head to the left and to the right. See if you can think about your head being right in the center of your chest, from front to back, and from side to side. When you're even on both sides, Let's find the center. And then one last movement here. Gently lower your chin towards your chest. Feel the back side of your neck lengthen. So it's like the very bottom of your head in the back is gently lifting off of your spine. And then let's do the opposite really slowly. Control how far back your head goes, but just gently lift your chin. See if you can keep the wrinkles out of the back side of your neck. So we're not allowing the head to just drop all the way to the back. We're in control of how far we allow our head to move. And this is just a really nice way to loosen up all the deep muscles in the neck. You know, they help us breathe, especially when our diaphragm is not working very well. And so they can get really tight when we've had a respiratory illness. This is my last one. And then I'm just going to find the center. And let's finish with a few deep breaths again. So if you find it helpful, place your hands around the bottom of the ribs. Feel free to close your eyes. If you'd rather do this lying down, find a position that feels comfortable for you. And send a gentle breath into your hands, breathing out at your own pace. As you take about 5 more gentle breaths, see if you can just let go of any more tension that you might be feeling around your eyes, in your scalp, your jaw, your hips, your neck and shoulders. Take one final breath out. And then allow your eyes to open whenever you're ready. Thank you so much for joining me. Great work today. I hope you enjoyed this gentle movement and breath-focused workout. I'm Talese Hunt, and I hope I'll see you again soon.